The Renew podcast features inspiring conversations between host Lauren Martin and influential women shaping the real estate industry. Renew is a rent-free initiative to unite and cheer on women professionals from every corner of the real estate world, coast to coast.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Renew podcast presented by Rent Spree. I am your host, Lauren Martin, where we aim to elevate females in the real estate space, share industry challenges, and showcase the remarkable achievements of women in real estate. Kerry Rakuson is joining us again from Centris. Kerry, thank you so much for coming back on, and we're looking forward to picking up this conversation.
Yes, looking forward to it too. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So your second pop quiz question is, if you could bring back any decade of fashion, which decade would you choose and why?
I bring back the 70s.
I love it. Why?
And I do it because there was less inhibition and less conformity, right? People were able to just be unique and be cool.
I love it. I love bell bottoms. I'm here for it.
Yeah, right? And everybody could just be groovy however they wanted.
Yeah, amazing. Well, to get us started, I'm going to do something new. I think I just made this decision this morning, and I think I'm gonna do it for the rest of the podcast for the year. So I started reading a book. It's called Dear Universe by Sarah Prout. And basically what it is every single day there is like a Dear Universe monologue that she reads and a mantra for the day. And I've been reading it every day and I love it. So I'm going to continue this, but I decided to bring this up today because the mantra of today was to slow down and appreciate the world around you, because so many times we miss out on the wonder that happens around us. And those who experience more wonder in life are because they are open to it and around them, and they see things that they wouldn't see before. So this just happened to me 2 days ago. It was snowing. Bill Andrews, call him out on here. He held his arm out, this poor Californian who had never really seen snow before, held his arm out and was mesmerized that the snowflakes actually looked like snowflakes on his sleeve. He was like, each one is completely different. And this is just something I took for granted, you know.
Right.
I've lived around snow my whole life, and yeah, it's a snowflake. What do you do? But he was just mesmerized by this, and it was so sweet. And this in this book today just reminded me of you, Kerry, because you are one of the people in the industry that stop to ask people how they're doing. You always care about me as a human being, and I think everybody would say that about you, but it just felt serendipitous that we had this podcast today and I read that mantra. So with that, I would love you to tell our audience, what does that mean to you? What does slowing down and appreciating mean to you?
Well, I think that's a great question for all of us. And what really slowing down and appreciating means to me is actually being connected to where I live all the time. Mm-hmm. I think that there are times in my career where I've been like road warrior extraordinaire and spent more time away from home than at home. Mm-hmm. And what I've realized as I've gone through my career is when I'm at home, I need to be enjoying the experience and the universe that's around me. Yeah. So living on Vancouver Island gives us a lot of opportunity for nature and being out in nature. So instead of, sitting around on Saturday, just kind of together, why don't we go out and check out a new trail and check out a new view and those types of things. But I also think there's something that I've been not working so well on in my life on Vancouver Island, and that's been to create my new community here. So we've been here a couple of years now, and back on the East Coast, I was involved in all kinds of community groups and stuff, and I just haven't started to sow those seeds. I have friends, I see the friends. It's been good. I've created some new connections and friends, but for the most part, I haven't sort of immersed myself in my community yet, which I was definitely involved in the last two places I lived. And
Yeah.
that's been on my sort of 2026 list. Okay, where do I start to do that?
And that's not easy. I was having this conversation with somebody the other day, and as an adult, it is harder and harder to make friends and build community, and you really have to put yourself out there. So I love that that is on your agenda for 2026. And that kind of leads in to my next question. So, going back to the real estate industry, we talk a lot about how this industry feels like one big family, right? We love each other, we're friends outside of work, but it puts people in a unique position where it makes the job harder. And I've been very honest about how it makes it hard sometimes if you're selling a product that you don't really believe in or that's not built. I had that at my last company, Rent Spree. I'm very fortunate that this is just an amazing thing that we're solving for, but that's not always the case. So, as somebody who's been to many different companies, can you talk to us a little bit about this experience and kind of what it's taught you?
Yeah, I think this really goes back to sort of, I've been fortunate to be part of a lot of different innovation. In some cases, that innovation has come to the market too early, that the market wasn't ready to be receptive to that.
Mhm.
And in other cases, that innovation didn't have maybe the money or the right business team behind it to drive it into success. Or let's just face it, it's a super long sales cycle in the industry. And sometimes when you're in startup mode, you can't wait for the governance models to work through that cycle. And they
Sure.
just run out of runway, even if it is the right time and the right innovation. So there are times though where because of those constraints, because of financial constraints or understanding of the industry, we talked about that in our last segment that we did together, where sometimes people don't understand the industry and the tech guys are just like, well, this is it, this is the best thing.
Right.
That really applies friction, because when you're working with those MLSs in that sales cycle, you want to work off of an authentic place. And sometimes you're
Right.
being asked, I talk about stretching the rubber band. And I always say, well, I start to feel really, really uncomfortable in my skin if I'm stretching that rubber band so far that it's going to take my eye out if it snaps back.
Right.
I'm always like, is this going to take my eye out? I'm
Right.
very fortunate as to where I've landed now with Centris. Centris delivers at a really high level, and they are not into rubber band stretching to lose an eye at all. And so this has allowed me to do that. But what it taught me was for me to know when to say when. And when I am standing in front of a group of people and cannot be authentic and honest about what it really is, and admit there are some things we don't know, because in startups there are things you don't know. When I am in a management position where that is not an avenue for me, and I'm so uncomfortable in my skin about it, then it is time for me to make a change. And I haven't been scared to make those changes. It
Yeah.
maybe stayed a little too long sometimes, and probably stayed too long for one of two reasons. One, trying to get a customer through
Hmm.
and not wanting to let that customer down,
Yeah.
because I have personal relationships and trust from that customer. Or two, having a relationship within the organization with someone that I had loyalty to because of how deep our friendships do become, and
Hmm.
not wanting to leave them hanging out there. So sometimes you stay too long in those things, and because you're worried about those around you versus making the choice for what's right for you and your health.
Yeah, I agree. And I think you bring up a really interesting point too. Is like sometimes at startups, it's just not there yet, and that's okay
Right.
too. Like at my last company, I was very fortunate with Remind that I was allowed to be myself through the growth of the company, really early startup stages. Like I started when there was like 15 people in an office, and I have so many funny stories where I'm sure you have the same. I'm in like a board demo and like Figma's down or like the staging is down, and I'm like cracking jokes, like making up funny stories. I'm like, oh, haha, yeah. Anyways, like let's talk about how, oh, I'd love to date a professional hockey player. Haha, how. And, you fill the time, and we've all been there. But I always had faith that with the startup, we would deliver on what we sold. And I think that that is like the meaningful difference is like it might not always be there, but as long as you're headed to that North Star of what you said it's going to be, I think that that is a huge factor too.
Yeah, and sometimes I think that can be out of alignment between the sales team and the tech team, right? And so
Yeah.
sometimes that creates that friction. I'll tell you a funny story. My first ever sale,
Mm-hmm.
I decided to do an in-person at the last minute. I showed up to a place that was extremely cold in winter and I didn't have a coat because I was coming out of somewhere warm.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to log into the system the night before to get ready. It was a Sunday night and the system was down.
Oh,
And I could not rouse anybody on our tech side. And I had to go into the demo in the morning.
hate to see
So
it.
I pieced together a slide deck. I was able to get the mobile app to work on my phone, and I literally did this presentation to MLS committee, and did it with the slide deck and passed my phone around
Oh, that takes.
after I was at a showdown, so I could hear a bit of the showdown happening with the other vendor who showed a completely live system working seamlessly.
Yes, it always
I
is
show
that
up with a slide deck and my phone, and that night when I went out for dinner with the staff person, they said to me, "So, you sold a slide deck today?"
way.
But that was my first big deal.
Yeah,
And it was because they trusted that I was being authentic and we were going to deliver.
I think that speaks volumes, although I hate to see it.
So
Just
I can tell you, I've sold at Centris, there's no selling of slide decks.
yeah.
And that makes me a lot more comfortable because that moment was not comfortable for me.
Well, I was on a call with an MLS and they were showing us some of the changes that they're making, and it was on Figma, and Figma stopped working. And I was like, look, I get it. I was like, "No, we've all been there." That's great. So the next question that I have for you is, let me collect myself. So we talked about how you are like a family. It's hard to leave sometimes, whether you're staying for a client or you're staying for a relationship. But you said something, and it's that you haven't ever had a hard time standing up for yourself when it is the right time to leave. And you've talked about this too in some of the Renew roundtables, and a lot of ladies found this beneficial. I know a few came up after that happened and said, I'm going to take that with me. But you talked about how if you're not happy, or even if you're comfortable but you're not happy, you don't have to stay just because of the relationships that you've built. You have to put yourself first. So can you talk to us just a little bit about what you meant by that?
Yeah, so I think there's some naturalness to women approaching things. We're at a loyalty, right? So, we're going to work through this and maybe sometimes put ourselves second because it's for the betterment of everybody else.
Right.
And when you're in a place where maybe your fire isn't being stoked, or there isn't even a pathway to help throw some new fuel onto that fire along the way, you might just be feeling like, I'm just here doing the same thing over and over and over again. And but I have this great network around me. So I love the people I work with. So that keeps my joy at work, but is the work keeping your joy?
Yeah.
Are you getting joy from what you're doing? And if it's only about the people around you, really having a strong understanding that if you make a change, those people are still around you.
Yeah.
Those people are still a part of your life. And if they don't come along with you in the journey, well, then was that really authentic? And I think that was really what I've tried to sort of say to people is, don't stay in that comfortable place. Like if you don't feel you're growing or you're getting what you need to have that lighting of your fire and that stoking of your fire, then really think about it. Because one thing I do know for sure is in the journeys I've been through, those people have come with me that I was worried about having loyalty and staying with. Those people have come with me.
I think that is so meaningful to hear, because a lot of the times we lose sight of that. And I try to remind myself every day to see the best in the surroundings that you have and the people that you have. And there is this like fear, well, if I move on, who am I going to lose? What is it going to look like? But I've tried to remind myself that the people who are supposed to be there will. And if they're not, that's okay too, because some people are just meant to be a chapter in your book and not be there for the whole story. And that is totally okay as well.
Yep, absolutely, right. And you've taken something from those relationships and you can carry those forward into new relationships. And like I really look at things like I have a set of doors in my life, and some of the doors I understand where they lead, some of them I don't. But every time I take a journey through one of those doors, I come back to the hallway and there's more doors. And so I think, that's really the spirit that I wanted to portray to people is, don't just stay there because that door is comfortable or you feel a loyalty to what's behind that door. Really look to yourself to understand where you want to go and make sure that you're getting what you need.
Yeah, or don't be afraid to step out the door, because I think that's a lot of people too are afraid of the uncertainty of a new door, and you can't be afraid of that.
Yep. And like I think about my relationship with my dad. My dad was a company guy, so he worked in the same place for a really long time.
Hmm.
I make him crazy. He doesn't know what to do with me. Like he's like, you gonna like settle down somewhere? Like
Yeah.
so, but to me, all of that change was growth to me. Like that
Yeah.
journey was part of the growth, which led me to be with Centris. And now I'm in a world where I'm enjoying the best of both the worlds I've worked in with a team that's amazing, and I'm doing good things that light my fire.
Yeah, my dad's the same way. He's very old school in that sense. And, I've bebopped around from fashion to business to whatever. And he's like, are you staying here? Or is this it for you? But he's been with the same company for pretty much his whole adult life.
Hmm.
So it is very different nowadays. But that leads me into kind of my next question. You are a strong advocate for yourself. And we're kindred spirits in that sense. I think that you in life are always going to be the best advocate for yourself, whether it's in your career, in your friendships, with your partner, or most importantly, with your health. So, can you talk to us a little bit about how that plays a role in your life and how sticking up for your health plays a role in your life as well?
Yeah, I think I've not always been good at that. And there are even times now where I'll lapse on that, right? Like you get really focused on a project or something and you really have to get that across the line and you're feeling loyalty to the team. And sometimes you're not showing up at the best you can because you're not in a place like you need to take a step back. You need the
Yeah.
rest. You've worked too much or whatever. But I've gotten better at that over the years for
Mm.
sure. And I'm certainly getting better at listening to the cues of my body.
Yeah.
And I have some regret that I never picked up on that earlier in my life for my children's sake, to be
Yeah.
frank about it. Like there's a picture that pops up on my Facebook memory quite often, well, every year.
Facebook is so good at reminding
And
you that kind of
it's
stuff.
at the time when I took the picture, it was basically I came home late and there was one plate with my fork and knife sitting at my spot at the table, and everything else in the table was cleared off, and it was
Mm-hmm.
dark outside, and I took like this picture of, another day of coming home and sitting down for dinner late. And in some ways it was like wearing a badge of honor. I'm so busy getting so much done. But I look at that picture now and it actually gives me a lot of regret, because
Yeah.
it's like I missed dinner with my kids and my husband. Yes, I was accomplishing these really great things and driven, but what was I giving up? And so those lessons have sat a little more with me as I've aged and matured. And so now it's like, wait, my body feels tired. I feel like I'm stretched. What do I need to do to take a step back from this? And I think as time has evolved, both even just me and my husband's relationship around that, he can recognize some of those things sooner and might suggest, hey, let's go. Want to go check out the trail over at Stony Hill. So learning that and growing up into that, I think, is important. And that's a piece that I've done better at as I've gotten more mature in my roles and my jobs.
Yeah, I feel like when you are in that hustle and you're making so many things happen in your professional life, you stop listening. And then when you slow down is when you can look back and think, oh, well,
Right? That
I
lonely
made like
plate
a
at the
good picture at
table.
the time, but what does it mean to me now? And I think that that leads us perfectly into my last question for you. This is the question I end all of the Renew podcasts on. But if you could go back in time and give advice to your younger little girl self, what would you tell her?
Probably something around the lonely plate. I would definitely say that there to come into this industry, finding that work-life balance sooner would have been healthy for myself and my family. And
Yeah.
I shouldn't have lost sight of that along the way in some of those times, right? And so I think that would be the advice I give. At one point because the travel can be a lot, right?
Hmm.
And when you have young kids and you travel, and maybe you went from being at home when you own an independent bookstore and work at the veterinarian clinic, to
Hmm.
now all of a sudden being on the road, that's a big adjustment. And I remember my husband actually asking me to not phone home because it was
Oh.
too upsetting to our youngest.
Hmm.
And to this date, I actually hardly phone home when I'm on the road. Everybody's always like, what do you mean? Because what it was she just became too upset that I wasn't there. He had a hard time getting her to bed. He was single parenting. He
Yeah.
was like, I think it's just better that I tell her when you're coming home.
Yeah.
And that you show up at home and it's easier for her to cope with you not being home.
Yeah.
But that piece, now obviously this was back in the day where there wasn't FaceTime and some other things like that, so that technology wasn't there to support maybe the connection in the way it is today. But to
Yeah.
think about what those meaningful connections are and then how to manage them and be sure you don't lose those.
Yeah. Well, and recognizing that it looks different for everybody else,
Right.
right?
Right.
So,
So for some families, the fact that I wasn't phoning home probably would have been really difficult. But for us, that's what worked. And we just rolled with what worked for everybody to, survive those younger years.
you make the best of what you have. And, one thing, I might have mentioned this on a last podcast, but it sticks with me every single day. I saw something on Facebook that said when you're a kid, you don't realize you're watching your parents grow up too. Like it's their first time being a parent. They're going through their job, their life. This is the first time they're making these decisions. And as kids, we think, they've got it all figured out. Like this is just
Right.
mom and dad. Like they know what they're doing. But we, not even our parents, but we're watching everybody do this for the first time. And I think that that allows me to give people maybe a little more grace. And I think what you said is such a perfect representation of that. Like, you guys were doing the best with what you had, and that's what worked, and that's what's important. And you showed up for your family, and look at how amazing your kids are now. And they learned from a strong mom. And I think it's really cool what you guys have built.
Yeah, and I think in saying that, I just leave it with one last thing. Not feeling guilty.
Yeah.
Right? So not feeling guilty, like understanding, okay, we did the best we could. And then if there's a lesson, the lesson learned there is what you take forward.
And you did great. I mean, you guys have had such a cool, great life. And, we're all learning lessons along the way. But I love that. I think that that is a great thing to go back and tell younger Kerry. So thank you so much for being on the Renew podcast. Thank you for all you do for our industry, as a friend. And for those of you, like we mentioned, Kerry will be speaking on stage at the very first Renew retreat. We're so excited. There's only a few spots left in the conference, and I think only like one hotel room left.
Wow, way to go. Congratulations.
Yeah, this has been such a huge, huge, exciting thing for us. So thank you for being a part of it. Thank you to Centris for sponsoring. But I'll give you a minute. Any last words that you want to share with our listeners? And then they'll see you on stage soon.
I just want to share with the listeners, I am thankful for the opportunities this industry has given me, because I've had lots of them. I've learned so much along the way from so many different people, women and my men network alike. And
sure.
and the thing I cherish most is that we cherish each other. And that is a really great place to be. So I appreciate you, Lauren, and your friendship, and Bill, and everybody around you, and the Rent Spree team. And we're excited about being part of this at Centris. We love to lift everybody up and we have a very large woman team, so that's positive. And I'm just so happy to have been a part of this and appreciative of it.
Amazing. Well, thank you, Kerry. Thank you to all of our listeners. Remember the mantra of today: stop and appreciate the things around you, even the small little snowflakes that land on your sleeve, because this life flies by and there's a lot of cool things around you. Thank you for supporting us, for uplifting women. We are so proud to have you guys all on this Renew journey, and we are excited for 2026. Please, like I said, make sure to like and subscribe to the Renew podcast on whatever pod platform you listen to us on. Until next time, thank you, and girl power.
Girl power.